morning, ma'am. And we are the group 4, and we are assigned to report the norm reference grading system. Okay, let me define first what is norm reference grading system. It refers to a grading system wherein a student is evaluated relatively to the performance of other students. Using the norm reference grading system, a student performance is evaluated relatively to the performance of other students within the group. It is also known as grading curve. The teacher will be the one to set how many percent of the student in the class assign each grade if it is not stated in the grading policy.
Okay, so let's have an example. In class 8, the high score of the class is 85 out of 100 items. Then the standard score is 85. While in class B, the high score of the class is 80 out of 100 items. Therefore, the standard score of the class is 80. So, at the table below, we have the class A and class B. Then the score is class A is 85. Then in class B is 80. So their norm reference grade is both 100%. So in this example, it shows that the one who got the high score, which is in class A, would be the standard and likely will get the highest grade, and also the top one of the class. So um, although each class have different scores, but they have same grade. So in this example, appears that there is no problem in this type of grading system. It is simply shows the performance of the students with reference to a particular group of learners. Okay, so another example below shows the difficulties associated with norm reference grading. So let's have an example. Considering the two sets of scores in an English class for two sections of 10 students. Okay, so the scores in section A, we have 30, 40, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85. So in section B, we have 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 90, 95, and 100. In the first class, the students who got the raw score of 75 would get a grade of 80%. While in second class, the students who get the same grade, which is 80%, would correspond to get a raw score of 90. Indeed, if the test used for two classes are the same, it would be an unfair system of grading. Why students will prefer to join in class A since it is easier to get a high score in that class rather than in class B. So in this example, illustrate one difficulty using norm reference grading system. So the problem was called problem of equivalency. Students, while may work individually, are actually in a competition to achieve a standard of a performance that will classify them into the desired grade range. So it is simply promote competition among students or pupils. In addition, norm reference grading system are based on a pre-established formula regarding the percentage or ratio of students within a whole class who will be assigned each grade or mark. In short, the one who got a high score in the class would be the top one. In conclusion, the norm reference grading system, students are evaluated or graded based on their performance within a class or within a group. Therefore, their performance may vary within class to class.
here are some examples of norm reference grading systems. First is the educational institutions. Second is the standardized test. So, under the educational institutions, there is percentile grading, bell curve grading, and stanine grading. So, percentile grading is where students are ranked based on their performance relative to peers. Like, for example, top 10% are receiving A's. And in bell curve grading, grades are distributed along a bell curve with most students receiving average scores like C's and fewer receiving high A's or low F scores. And in the Stanine grading, students are ranked on a 9-point scale with 1 to 3 being below average, 4 to 6 average, and 7 to 9 above average. And second is the standardized test. Under the standardized test, there is SAT or SAT, ACT or ACT, and GRE. So first is the SAT or the SAT. This is where scores are normalized to ensure consistency across test administrations. And second is ACT or the ACT. Scores are ranked relative to national norms. And in the GRE, scores are normalized to ensure consistency across test administrations. So, these examples illustrate norm reference grading in various contexts, emphasizing relative performance rather than absolute achievement.
Today, I'm going to explain the different characteristic of a norm reference grading system. So here are the key characteristic of the norm reference grading system. So first, we have here the relative grading. So when we say relative grading, it is a student grade is still determined by their position within a group, and a fixed percentage of students receive each grade. And also, this can be lead to a curve where a student's grade might be improved or worsened based on the performance of their peers. The next, we have another example is the competition in the characteristic. So when we say a competition, it is a norm reference grading can foster competition among students as they strive to outperform their peers. And also, this can be sometimes lead to a negative learning environment where cooperation is discouraged. The third characteristic is the normal distribution. So when we say normal distribution, it is a system often assume that students' performance follows as a normal distribution. And this means that most students will fall in the middle range where with fewer and the extremes. Then lastly, we have here the standardized test. So it is a norm reference test are often used to compare students to a larger nationally it representative sample, and this can be provide a broader context for evaluating students' performance.
So I'll be tackling the purposes of norm reference grading. So here are the purposes of norm reference grading. First is comparative assessment. Norm reference grading facilitates comparative assessment, measuring individual students' performance against the groups. This approach evaluates students' achievements relative to their peers, providing insights into their strengths and weaknesses. By comparing students' performance, educators identify areas where students need extra support or enrichment, informing targeted intervention and differentiated instruction. And the second is the ranking. Norm reference grading enables ranking, identifying top performing students and distinguishing them from their peers.
These competitive aspects motivate students to excel academically, fostering resilience and perseverance. Ranking also helps educators recognize exceptional students, providing opportunities for advanced learning or recognition.
So, the purpose of standardization in a norm reference grading system is to compare a student performance to a larger group, often at a national level. This allows teachers to analyze student scores, to learn more about their performance, and identify where a student stands in relation to their peers. This also allows educators to rank students in relation to how well others in the group have performed. And that's the purpose of standardization in a norm reference system. Accountability is a system that uses performance based measure to encourage improvement and drive systematic change. In the context of non reference tests, accountability can help identify students why maybe they are at risk for poor learning outcomes. Accountability data can be used to hold schools and districts accountable for outcomes. For example, school district can collect and aggregate data on student attendance, achievement, and resources.
Here are the advantages of norm reference grading system. First, we have the easy comparison. The norm reference grading system facilitates easy comparison among students, allowing educators to rank and compare student performance. This enables teachers to identify top performing students and those who required extra support. By comparing students' performance relative to their peers, educators can adjust instruction to meet the needs of diverse learners. This comparative approach helps identify areas where students excel or struggle, informing targeted interventions. Second, we have the standardized. So the norm reference grading system ensures consistency and evaluating student performance. Since grades are based on a fixed distribution, educators can maintain objectivity and fairness. This standardized approach minimizes biases, ensuring equal assessment standards for all students. Consistent grading criteria facilitate accurate comparison across different classes, schools, or districts. And the third one, we have the motivation. So the competitive nature of norm reference grading encourages students to strive for academic excellence by making students relative to peers. This system fosters healthy competition. Students are motivated to improve their standing, pushing themselves academically. This competitive environment helps build resilience, perseverance, and a growth mindset. However, critics argue excessive competition may lead to undue stress and diminish collaboration, so we should be balanced.
I will be the one to discuss the disadvantages of norm reference grading system. The first disadvantages is the limited feedback. A norm reference grading system focuses on ranking students against each other rather than measuring individual progress. This means students receive limited feedback on their actual learning, making it hard for them to identify areas for improvement. Instead of knowing what they need to work on, students are simply told where they stand compared to others. This approach neglects individual growth and development. Second, teaching to the test. In a norm reference grading system, it encourages teaching to the test, where instructors prioritize test preparation over meaningful learning experiences. Educators focus on drilling students with test taking strategies rather than fostering critical thinking, creativity, and problem solving skills. This narrow approach can lead to students being unprepared for real world challenges. Third, norm reference grading systems inevitably label students as high achievers or low achievers. This labeling can have damaging effects on students' self-esteem and motivation. Struggling students may feel stigmatized, leading to decreased confidence and a higher likelihood of giving up. Conversely, high achievers may feel undue pressure to maintain their status, causing stress and anxiety. This labeling overlooks individual strengths and weaknesses.
So now I will be discussing the alternatives of criterion reference grading system and the standard-based grading system. So criterion reference grading focuses on measuring a student's mastery of specific skills or learning objectives, regardless of how other students perform. This system establishes clear criteria for each skill or objective, and students are assessed against this criteria. Grades are assigned based on the student's level of achievement on each criterion, rather than their ranking compared to their peers. It also encourages a focus on individual progress and mastery rather than competition. This system is often used in situations where collaboration and teamwork are emphasized, as students can help each other without fear of lowering their own grades. Now I will be discussing the standard based grading. So, standard based grading evaluates students' learning against established standards or competencies that are typically set at the state or the national level. These standards define the knowledge and skills students are expected to master at each grade level. Students receive grades that reflect their proficiency in meeting each standard rather than a single overall grade for the course. This system aims to provide a clearer picture of a student's strengths and areas for improvement, promoting a growth mindset. This standard based grading emphasizes individualized learning and feedback, allowing teachers to tailor instruction to meet each student's needs.